Have you guys ever read The Silver Surfer? I admit I never really have. Not for a good 30 years. When I first got into comics, I went on this sort of buying spree. Like back when I was in like 6th grade is when I started reading comics. This was, in the late 80s, early 90s. And so I kind of went around and started buying all these different comic books with all these different characters to kind of just explore and see what's happening. The first couple of years, I bought everything. I bought Batman and Superman and the Avengers and Captain America and the Hulk and stuff like that. The actual very first comic I ever bought was the Hulk. Eventually, I started kind of leaning towards Marvel. I read pretty much anything Marvel. In particular, I read the Hulk, the Avengers, X-Men, and I bought a couple of Silver Surfers. A few of them, but I couldn't really get into it. It was just too, I don't know, kind of meh to me. It was just weird space shit. Admittedly, Silver Surfer was not my favorite. But I knew enough about the character. It was alright, but honestly, I don't have the emotional attachment to the Silver Surfer that I do with, say, something like Wolverine or Captain America or the Hulk. So when the announcement came about a week ago or so that they are casting a female actor to be the Silver Surfer, I truly didn't give a shit. I don't care. That's interesting. Okay, so they're going with a gender-bent Silver Surfer, alright. But, we live in a hell world where every single time somebody does something that's different when it comes to sci-fi, fantasy, or comic book movies, all of the conservatives lose their fucking mind, because that's the kind of world we live in. We live in a world where you have to make your adaptation the exact same as it's always been ever, and you're never allowed to change anything. You're never allowed to change anything about the character. You can't make them tall or skinny or fatter or stronger or bigger. You can't change anything about them, especially their race or sex. And if you do, you run the risk of being called woke. And that's what's happened with the female Silver Surfer. All of the idiot wannabe Comicsgate morons have turned around and called it woke. The MCU, that's what they call it now, because Marvel is, wisely in my opinion, trying to have characters which just aren't all white males, right? Here's the thing, folks. First off, do you give a shit about the Silver Surfer? I mean, who cares? Silver Surfer has always been kind of second fiddle. Like, yeah, he had his own series for a little while in the 70s, and then maybe about 50 issues in the 80s, but beyond that, he's always been a supporting character to the Fantastic Four. This is a different character. Female Silver Surfer is actually the Silver Surfer's girlfriend. Her name is like Shen-La or some shit like that. I can't remember, right? Why can I not remember? And why did not anybody else know what her name is? Like, nobody actually knows what her fucking name is, whatever. Why? Because no one reads the Silver Surfer. No one gives a fuck about the Silver Surfer. Silver Surfer is like a Z-list character. Silver Surfer is like right up there with like X-Man. You know what I mean? He's not an A-lister like Spider-Man or Wolverine, or even a B-lister like formerly Iron Man and Captain America. He's definitely like C, maybe even D-list, right? He's like up there with like Nova and like Quasar, that kind of thing, in terms of like name recognition and popularity. So who actually gives a fuck? Well, apparently all the conservatives and chuds have lost their fucking minds over it, right? So here's a couple of things I want to show you guys. Here's a dude on Twitter named Kaida. And let's read this. I'm sure there's no other reason that she was the best person for the job. There couldn't possibly be any other reason to use the female version of the Silver Surfer. Couldn't possibly be. Let's see what this guy has to say. Let's make this a little bigger. This is only 52 seconds long.
Any hope you have for the MCU version of the Fantastic Four is officially gone. And before people start, no, it's not just because she's a female. It's the reason why they're using the female version of the Silver Surfer.
Female. You allow your females to go outside and wear clothing.
Sorry. Every time I hear one of these fucking wannabe, like, incel guys, tired-ass incel guys use that term, say female, like, that's what I think. I think fucking Ferengi. I think the next generation, Quark and shit, you allow your females to wear clothing and make profit. It's just so pathetic.
Because instead of using the iconic version of Silver Surfer right here, Norn Rad, they would rather use a female version of the Silver Surfer, which I can't even tell you off the top of my head because I don't even remember the name. But surely there's no other reason other than she was the best person for the... Surely there's no other reason.
Yeah, 9 times out of 10, if you go to your average Marvel fan and you ask them the Silver Surfer's name, what's Silver Surfer's real name? 9 times out of 10, most people won't know that his name was, like, the character's name is Norn Rad. No, they wouldn't. I didn't know it. Off the top of my head, no. I've read it before, and maybe if I thought about it for a few minutes, maybe I could remember it. But, no. And I'm someone who's been collecting for 30 years. I'm one of those collectors that just sort of collects something and never gets rid of it. So I've got, like, literally 30,000 comics, maybe. Maybe 30,000? Nah, maybe not that many. I have, like, 20 boxes. So, maybe not that many either. But I have a ton. I've got a ton of them. And I read even more online. So, I got the nerd credentials there. And I can tell you, it's like, no one gives a fuck. Like, who actually cares? Who the iconic version of the Silver Surfer? No one gave a fuck about the Silver Surfer to fucking begin with. Not really, but moving on.
Other than she was the best person for the job. There's no other reason at all. There's no reason why you wouldn't use an iconic character and instead gender swap it and use it as somebody else. There's no other reason other than that. I can't think of any other reason than she was the best actor or actress for the job. I really can't think of anything else. Yeah, this shit is DOA, man. Just get the fuck out of here, bro. This shit's stupid, man.
See, that's the thing. Okay, DOA. Judging it even before it comes out, we don't know what her role is going to be in the movie. We don't know if she's going to have a starring role. We don't know if she shows up for 5 minutes. She could be the version of the Silver Surfer that's in, like, a different universe. I mean, she would be, since the Marvel universe technically is a different universe than the one that's in the comics, if you're a nerd and you're into this kind of shit. She could be a multiverse version of the Silver Surfer. We don't even know. She could be in the movie for 10 minutes. For 5 minutes even. We don't know. If you judge it just without even bothering to see it, it's like, fine. That's cool, but don't say that you're a fan if that's what you do. If you don't want to watch a movie, then don't watch a movie. But why? Because it has a girl in it? That's what I don't get about these fucking guys, right? Now, why did they actually choose a woman to be the Silver Surfer? I don't know. If I had to guess, it's because the MCU likes to do things different than what has previously been released. That would be my guess. So you notice that they go out of their way to make sure that the films they make are not rehashes of previously made films. They did that with Spider-Man. By the time they got to Tom Holland and Spider-Man, there were already a good 5 Spider-Man films. And so what did they do? They already had a Spider-Man who was young and worked at the Daily Bugle and all that, so they didn't do that. They already had a Spider-Man that had Gwen Stacy as a girlfriend and all this stuff, and they didn't do that. They already had 2 Spider-Man films where he fought the Green Goblin, so they didn't immediately do that. The first couple Spider-Man films had villains that were never used before, and Spider-Man in a interpretation of Spider-Man that was never done before. Because that's what they like to do in the MCU. They like to make things different. This is actually something that Kevin Feige has said in interviews. He doesn't like to rehash stuff. He doesn't like to tell the same stories over and over again. And you know why? Because people will not go and see the exact same movie over and over again. And that's kind of the problem between, you have the fucking Tobey Maguire Spider-Man and then like the fucking dude from Social Network, that guy, Spider-Man, right? They're very close to each other. There's not very much, if you watch those 2 series of films, they're very close. What happened because of that? People lost interest in The Amazing Spider-Man and The Amazing Spider-Man 2. Why? Because it wasn't very different from the first series. It was almost like the same movie over and over and over and over. So Fantastic Four has already had multiple movies. 2 of them by Fox, and then another one that came out in, 2014, which was a pile of garbage. I never actually bothered to see it. Everybody says it was a pile of garbage. What are they doing in order to make this one different than the previous movies, which basically failed? They don't want to make the exact same movie over and over again, so there's going to be changes. And some of those changes are in the way that they interpret the characters. And that's just been a thing that the MCU has always done. They didn't do the Hulk the same way as previous versions of the Hulk. The X-Men will probably be different. Right, the Fantastic Four will probably be different. They did Spider-Man differently than previous versions of Spider-Man. Okay, they made the Punisher way different. The MCU version of the Punisher is incredible, in my opinion. You know, that show, The Punisher, that they did is like one of the best things that, in my opinion, it's one of the best MCU projects, is the Punisher show. If you guys haven't seen the Netflix Punisher, it rules. It's incredible. It's exactly what the Punisher should be. But it's very different. The interpretation of the Punisher there is very different than earlier versions. There were a couple of Punisher movies. I think there's 3 of them. There's even one with like Dolph Lundgren from like way back in the 90s. They made their Punisher better and, you know, different and better. And that's what the MCU does. You know, their version of Daredevil, different and better. Right? Their version of Spider-Man, I think, is the best Spider-Man out of all of them. I like Tom Holland even more than Tobey Maguire. So I'm not judging the book by its cover, okay? Female Silver Surfer, well, show me what you got. If the thing is, folks, if you don't like a movie, then don't go to the movie. But let's continue on. There's a few more tweets here. Cayuga's Top Gal. Marvel in 2007. Let's give Silver Surfer the voice of the black guy from The Matrix and make him look cool as fuck. Marvel in 2024, Lamau. Shalla-bal, that's the name of the character, right? So Shalla-bal is the Silver Surfer's girlfriend. So this is an alternate universe version of the Silver Surfer, who apparently, this version of the Silver Surfer has actually appeared in the comics, but I've never actually seen it. So it's not like they just made this up just for the movie. This is actually a thing that has appeared in like what if stories before, I think. But why? See, here's the thing. So it's a female Silver Surfer. So what's the deal? Who cares? Where does the Lamau come from? You know what I would laugh at? I would laugh at a female version of Wolverine. I would laugh at that. If the MCU switched the gender of Wolverine, that would make me laugh. Then I would be, okay, now this is just some pandering bullshit. Why? Because Wolverine is an A-list, A-tier character. When people go to watch a Wolverine movie, they know what they want to see. They want to see, Let's Go Bub and Claws chomping a cigar and doing a tornado claw and shit, right? Silver Surfer. What do you want to see of the Silver Surfer? What does the Silver Surfer even do? He flies around on a surfboard in fucking outer space, for fuck's sake. It's not even close. Who cares? Right? Did you see, anybody out there watching this, did you see Rise of the Silver Surfer from 2007? It's kind of a piece of shit. I mean, it's not terrible. And I kind of like terrible movies, so I'm a little biased. I thought it was meh. And that's what it is. It's meh. It's just like, alright, whatever. And there's a reason why they never made any Fantastic Four movies after Rise of the Silver Surfer, because it was meh. Right? It just felt like it was nothing special. So the MCU doesn't want to be nothing special. The MCU actually wants to make good stuff. Stuff that people haven't seen before. Stuff that is actually going to get people to see the movie. Honestly, I am a little intrigued when I hear that they change a character like this, because the MCU hasn't really burned me as far as there's been very few turkeys in the MCU, and even projects that people don't like, things like the Marvels was really good. I know that it bombed, but I don't think it bombed through any fault of the film itself. The Marvels is not a half bad movie. Not really. I thought it was maybe, I'd give it like 7.5 out of 10. That's where kind of the MCU has a problem. The MCU has a problem because it's very formulaic. And yeah, the Marvels is formulaic. Right? Don't get me wrong, it's not the best that they've ever produced, but I had a good time watching it. Lots of action in it. There's a little bit of character development here and there. There's like a musical number right in the middle. It's a good fun time. That's what I expect when I go to see a superhero movie, where people are blowing stuff up and there's aliens and crap like that. I go there for a good fun time, and that's what they've all provided. There's been very few crap fests in the MCU. Even something like Quantumania, Ant-Man Quantumania. Everybody hates that movie for some reason. I fucking loved it. I thought it was great. It's funny. It's a comedy. You know? How do you make a movie about Ant-Man and make it serious? That's the thing. Everybody wants this serious, gritty take on MCU projects, you know? Like, they look at something like Winter Soldier, and they go, that's the best one. Well, you know what happens when you make superhero movies too gritty and too realistic? Thor: The Dark World. That's what happens. Everybody hated that one too, didn't they? Why? Because it's boring. Alright? You notice that the good Thor movies are the comedies. They're the funny ones. Fucking Ragnarok. Love and Thunder. Love and Thunder is great. It's like one of my favorite MCU movies. It's hilarious. Right? It doesn't take itself too seriously, and that's the problem with like all these fucking angsty fucking incels who are pissed off that, like, you know, girls actually read comics and girls go to movies and stuff. It's like they all want the Dark Knight. You know, they want to see, yeah, I want it to be like Fantastic Four, but like the Dark Knight. It's like, dude, you can't make the same fucking movie over and over and over again. You know, people stop coming if you do that. You have to make your own interpretation. You have to put things out that are fresh and new. A few more here, a few more. This is Blackjack Films on X. My actual audio reaction. Marvel Studios is fucked. Fantastic Four at this point is unfilmable. And it's just basically this dude laughing and shit like that. Unfilmable. This is why I don't understand these people. I mean, is that what you want? Is that what all the Comicsgate people want? Do they just want the exact same thing that's in the comic book? With no changes, with no plot. You know, they do that a lot with anime, right? You ever, like, see an anime and it's the exact same thing as the manga and they don't change anything? You can't do that with American comics. Alright, American comics are ongoing. They go on forever, for decades, years and years and years and stuff like that. It's not the same thing. And if you did it like that, it would suck. If they started over at Fantastic Four #1 and adapted that to live action, it'd be a giant piece of shit. Alright? Because it's a comic book that came out in like the 1960s. It'd be all weird and dated and stuff like that, and references to the Soviet Union and that kind of fucking thing. And the plots were trite and overused by this point. It'd be a piece of giant fucking garbage. So they need to interpret it and make it fresh for modern audiences. But you can't do that if you just copy the exact same story out of the book with no fucking changes. No, you have to change it. And yeah, okay, maybe it might end up being that this isn't a change for the better. I could totally admit that. There's a possibility that I'm going to go see this movie when it comes out next year, and it's going to be a giant fucking pile of garbage. Alright, I'm totally open to that. But if that happens, it's not going to be because there's girls in it. It'll be because it was written bad. See, there's a difference. You know, how the fuck is it unfilmable just because of the cast? That's the thing. Like, these guys, they always act like they're fucking purists and all that stuff. And, oh, we just want good stories. We don't actually care about gender, and we don't actually care about race and all that. And that's not what we're objecting to. We're just objecting to the spirit of the character has been changed and blah, 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 blah. No, it isn't. Okay? They don't actually give a fuck about good stories. No, they don't. It's political. Get the fuck out of here, right? Okay, there's a few more. This is Supkim. Sorry, I couldn't find the female version showing the Silver Surfer here. You notice he didn't actually show even the first issue of the Silver Surfer. It's like, if you're gonna do one, choose like an iconic cover or something. He didn't do that. He just chose some random fucking Silver Surfer thing. The thing is, there was a female version, like we said. It's like they didn't just make it up. They took this from the comics. And yeah, granted, it's an obscure character from the comics. But it's sort of like, you remember when Falcon took over as Captain America, right? So you had the TV show Captain America and Bucky. And what it is that if you haven't watched it, it's actually pretty good, I thought. So Steve Rogers at the end of Endgame retires and goes off into the past to live with Agent Carter. And he passes the shield over to Sam Wilson, who is the Falcon, right? And then they made a series called The Falcon and the Winter Soldier, which talks about their adventures as the Falcon as Captain America. Right, and by the end of it, he's taken on the mantle of Captain America. Well, it's not like, first off, they made that up. That is something from the comics. Okay, in the comic books, Falcon takes over for Cap for a little while, and actually so does Winter Soldier. So that's not a thing that they just created to get diversity into the MCU or whatever. Like, no, they took that plot line from the comics, first off. Secondly, Falcon has been in the comics for years and years and years and years. In fact, the comic book Captain America used to be called Captain America and Falcon. Right? Captain America and the Falcon. That's what it used to be called. And it was like that for like 50 issues. But of course these comic purists lost their fucking minds when they did that on TV. Right, when they actually made a live-action adaptation of that plotline, these Comic Gate guys lose their minds over that. And the racism just poured out like fucking water. Right? And it's not about that. So even when they take something that's like a non-obscure character, these guys still react the same. Okay? So don't tell me that it's because, like, oh, I couldn't find the character. They just made it up for this. It's like, no. Even when they take an established character that has been around for decades and use one of the plot lines that they did in the comics and adapt that, these guys go fucking nuts if it's not a white male. So, don't feed me this shit. Okay? Because it's so fucking transparent. This Comics Gate shit is so fucking transparent. It's not even funny. Another one. Some dude, I don't even know who this says, keen on. It's back to business as usual for Disney. Female Silver Surfer confirmed. They learned nothing. They have no incentive to change. What do you mean they learned nothing? What lesson does Disney have to learn? What? That crybabies like you aren't going to go see their movies because it has girls in it? Because they made the Marvels and the Marvels bombed. You know, the Marvels is literally the second project in the MCU to bomb. It bombed, yeah, it bombed pretty hard. It didn't make, I think it didn't even break 100 million, to be honest. Let me take a look. It made 84 million domestic and 121 international. Grand total, $206 million. $206 million is a runaway blockbuster success for any other movie except a Marvel movie. Cost them $270 million, so they actually lost money on the Marvels. Okay, so yeah, that's a bomb. It is only the second bomb in the entire MCU project. Okay, out of all of the MCU movies, there have been exactly 2 cinematic failures. There was the Marvels, and then there was the Inhumans. And that's it. Alright, which is kind of amazing for, like, how many movies are there? 30? 32? Something like that? There is a shitload of movies in the MCU. Let me see, I got a list here. Let me count them. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. I don't know them off the top of my head, of course. 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. Endgame was 22, 23, 24, 25, Eternals 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, 31. Guardians of the Galaxy 3 is 32. 33 with the Marvels. So Deadpool and Wolverine is going to be number 34. 34 films. 2 bombs. Every single one of the other ones has been a moneymaker, if not a runaway success, if not some of the highest grossing films of all time. You know, if you count like Endgame, for example, is I think currently the highest grossing film of all time. Or at least it was for a little while. I don't know, maybe Avatar or something might have taken it since then. That's an incredibly good track record. That, and then also a large number of TV shows and other related projects. Most of them which are really good. Most of them which did really good. Even the mediocre ones are watchable. You know, like Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Like that one. You know, the Falcon and the Winter Soldier, right? Even that it's mediocre. It's still watchable. It's still okay. You still watch it and have a good time. It's entertaining. There's explosions and fights and people getting their asses beat, stuff like that. And yeah, maybe you don't watch it 50 times like you do Endgame. It's not something that you love and you watch over and over and over again. But it's good for what it was. It's just a TV show. I had a good time, and I put it on my favorites list, and maybe one day I'll watch it again. You know what I'm saying? It's like, that's what they're there for. It's kind of like reading comics. How many times do you read comics? Like, you buy a comic book. How often do you read that comic book? I have hundreds, like I said, if not thousands of comics. I probably have close to 25,000, maybe 30,000 comics. I should count them one of these days. I've actually been selling a shitload of them, so, you know. If I count all the digital ones I have, I easily 30,000 comics, right? How often do you reread a comic book? I read it once, and then maybe if I really like the story, I'll go back and read it again. And then maybe a few years later, I might glance at it as I'm going through things and deciding what I'm going to get rid of, what I'm going to sell, stuff like that. Very few comics I read over and over and over and over again. Very few. Very few are my favorite stories that I can just read multiple times. It's like, no. That's kind of how you consume the stories in comic books. You read one, you read it and you get another piece of the story and another piece of the story as it goes on and on and on and on. And that's what comics are like. And that's kind of what the MCU is like. The MCU is like reading comic books. You watch this movie, you get a little bit of the story. You watch that show, you get a little bit of the story. It advances a little bit here, a little bit there, and then they have the big crossover event. Thanos shows up, and all the Avengers are there, and Spider-Man's there, and Black Panther is there, and Doctor Strange is there, and everything, and shit hits the fan, and there's a huge-ass fight, and now we're in the build-up to another one, and it's going to be Secret Wars, and now Wolverine's there, blah, 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 blah. That's what comics are. They're serialized. The big thing about the MCU is that it was the first one to ever actually pull this off successfully. There have been other cinematic universes in the past, and they're usually 3-4 films at the most. No one ever has created such a wide, overarching story like the MCU is. That's what made it so successful. The reason why other franchises have never actually duplicated this success I think no other franchise has, with the exception of maybe Godzilla. The latest MonsterVerse, Godzilla, they've kind of had a good run with their cinematic universe. But even then, Godzilla only has, 5 films? It doesn't really compare to the MCU. It's still very much in the beginning. That's what makes it good, is that you can watch one or you can watch all of them. You don't have to watch 30 films to get the entire story. But if you do invest the time into it, like reading comics, then the payoff is that much better. Then you get an overall wider arc of the story. That's what people don't get about comics. And even consuming media in the MCU. People think you have to watch every single TV show and you got to watch every single movie. It's like, no, you don't have to do that. In order to get it, you don't have to watch every single fucking thing, right? You don't have to start at Iron Man and watch all 34 films in order to understand what's going on in the Marvels. No. You just have to have a general idea of what's happening. And that's it. And you can jump in at any point and enjoy yourself. It's just like reading comics. You know, if you try to read every single comic, you can't. You'll have to go back to the very beginning in Fantastic Four #1, 1963 or whenever the fuck it came out, and try to read every single one. It's not possible. You'll never do it. And you don't have to. You should just jump in wherever you want and start reading. And if you like what you read, then you read more. And if you don't like what you read, then you read something else. And that's how comics are meant to be consumed. They're serialized so that it rewards you if you like what you read. So that you want to read more. So that you get a little bit of the story each time. And these fucking guys, I mean, that's the thing about it. Like, it's all just right-wing, like, part of this stuff is like right-wing assholes trying to start up fucking Gamergate 2 and trying to get it through comics. And so, like, that's part of this. Part of it is just every time there's like a black person or a girl in a movie, somebody gets pissed off, because that's the fucking hell world that we live in now. But yeah, we live in a fucking hell world where, like, everything is fucking political now. And these assholes lose their fucking minds whenever there's someone who's not white or not a man gets a starring role in something. They go fucking freaky. So that's one, like, part of it. And then the other part is basically, like, these nerds who are, like, pissed that other people like the same shit that they like. And I never understood that. I never understood people who are mad that girls read comics. Never got that. You know why? Because comic book geeks are the biggest geeks on Earth. I've never met a bigger group of horny guys ever than when I went to my first comic book convention when I was like 12 years old. Seriously, guys, go to a Comic-Con. If you don't believe me and you've never ran in these circles before, go to a Comic-Con. Every single dude there is fat or too skinny or dorky or has a face full of zits. Every single fucking person there is a dork. Because that's what we are. That's what comic book people are. We're geeks. And we're happy about it. And for decades and decades and decades, we've been geeks. Because the comic book shop was the one place where geeks could feel safe. Geeks could be happy. You know, the bullies and the jocks and shit didn't go there. And you could go there and you can hang out with your friends and you can read Spider-Man and you can play D&D and stuff like that and not have to worry about anybody fucking with you. There's just this segment of just guys who are fucking gatekeeping that shit because now it's popular to be a geek. And it has been popular for quite some time, and all the normies are starting to fucking get into this stuff because of all these movies. And a lot of these geeks, you know, people like me, gatekeeping that stuff because they feel like it belongs to them. And it's like, dude, it doesn't belong to you. Because that's the other thing you got to remember about comics. Last thing I'm going to say before we move on to our final subject here. Comics has never been about art. Especially when it comes to the big two. Okay, you can say it maybe when it comes to indie creators or something. Maybe there is a little bit of art in there, you know, when you get somebody like Neil Gaiman or whatever, or something like that. Maybe it was about art for those guys. But for the two big publishers, Marvel and DC, especially Marvel, it's not about art. It's about money, especially Marvel. Marvel, the history of Marvel is putting out one exploitative book after another, fucking over their creators, jumping on trends and doing everything they can to squeeze money to get bigger sales, squeeze more money out of a character before it's gone, before it's run its course. That's why you have things in comics like crossover events. That's why you have shit like Secret Wars. Okay. and Crisis in Infinite Earths, because DC is no fucking different. You know, it's all about getting people out there showing up at the comic book store and spending money. And you know, if you think DC's different, they're not. You know, there's a reason why, for example, a large number of comics in the 1960s and 70s from DC have gorillas on the cover. Because they found that whenever they put a gorilla on the cover of their comic book, they got more sales. So they started creating all of these gorilla characters, and every DC hero had a villain that was a gorilla. You know, you had the Ultra Humanite, you had fucking Gorilla Grodd for the Flash, right? You had Titano for Superman. Not for any particular reason, not because the writers liked gorillas, no. They said, hey, gorillas equal money, write some shit with some gorillas in it. Right? So it's not like DC's any different. No, it's all about money. You know, Marvel made a fucking comic book with Miley Cyrus's dad in it. You know, Billy Ray Cyrus was the fucking, like, star of his own comic, for fuck's sake. They made a superhero about, like, an NFL quarterback or whatever, right? They made a superhero team of stunt bikers, like Evel Knievel. Okay, like, Marvel has put out one shitty book after another. They made Captain America into a fucking werewolf. It was the dumbest fucking shit ever. It was so dumb. They made the Punisher into Frankenstein. Alright, so no, it's not like there's art going on here. Some of it's really fucking goofy, some of it's hit and miss, but some of it's really, really good. You know? If anything, comics is also a very good example of how you can tell great stories in a commercial medium. Because don't get me wrong, it's definitely 100% commercial all the way. It's there to sell books. And they do stunts, and they have gimmicks, and all of this other shit in order to sell books. And some of the things they make are really good. Hickman's Secret Wars in 2016 is probably some of the best comics I've ever read. That lead up, the Avengers lead up to, I think it was called Time Runs Out. If you're looking for something to read Time Runs Out. And then the Secret Wars. In fact, the lead up to Secret Wars, in my opinion, was better than the Secret Wars crossover event in 2016. Some of the best shit I've ever read comes out of these companies where it's all about the Benjamins for these guys. So keep all that shit in mind. It's like, okay, yeah. Is it silly? Of course it's silly, right? It's the fucking Silver Surfer. Let's get back to the Silver Surfer, right? Yeah, okay, maybe dumb. Maybe they shouldn't have a girl Silver Surfer, whatever. Maybe they should have stuck to the iconic character. But you know something? I'm not going to just discount it. It's something new. That's the thing. It's something new. It's something fresh. It's a new take on the character. It's not just the same boring shit over and over and over again. And it could be really good. And we'll wait and see. And this is the final thing I'm going to say about this, folks, right? You're not obligated to go see anything. You're not obligated to read anything. You're not obligated to consume media from any company for any reason whatsoever. You don't have to justify the choices in what you choose to spend your money on. So if you don't like it, if you really think it's going to be lame, then just don't watch it. The end of story. That's all it takes. That's literally it. If you think the idea of a girl Silver Surfer is stupid, then just stay home and don't watch it. And all your friends will, they'll either stay home or they'll watch it either, and then maybe your friends will come and say, hey, I watched it, it sucked. Or maybe your friend will come and say, hey, I watched it, it looked good. And then all you have to do is be like, yeah, it doesn't interest me. End of story. No one's gonna shame you. No one's gonna boycott you. No one's going to fucking cancel you because you don't go see a movie. Nobody gives a flying fuck what you do with your money, what movies you watch, what comic books you read. Nobody cares. These fuckers really have made a cottage industry out of bitching and moaning whenever black people and women get a role in a comic book movie. There's hundreds of channels, Nerdrotic being chief among them, but there's hundreds and hundreds of YouTube channels and other, blogs and things like that, where they've just turned it into a cottage fucking industry that whenever a movie comes out and it has something that's even slightly different than the traditional interpretation of a character or something like that, they just go completely nuts and they go, it's woke, it's woke, it's woke, it's woke, it's gonna go broke, blah, 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 blah. And they talk all this shit. Sometimes, the movie does well. Aquaman. Sometimes the movie doesn't do well. Aquaman 2. It has nothing to do with wokeness. It has nothing to do with casting a woman in a role that for a male character, or casting someone that's different race of the original comic book, whatever. Has nothing to do with any of that shit whatsoever. It's like, some movies do well, some of them don't. It's hit and miss. It's Hollywood. That's show business. You win some, you lose some. The audience is fickle. There could be 100 different reasons that people don't go see your movie. Look at Aquaman. The second Aquaman is the exact same fucking thing as the first Aquaman. It is. It's the exact same movie. The second one made no money. The first one made a shitload of money. What's the difference? How come it didn't do well? Well, maybe because it was the exact same fucking movie. Maybe there's superhero fatigue. Maybe people are getting tired of superhero movies. Maybe it's finally run its course after, 30 years? Iron Man wasn't the very first superhero movie to ever come out. There's all kinds of reasons. Who knows? This one could bomb too, or it could do really fucking well. Who even knows? All I know is that I'm just not going to care who the casting choices are. Okay? It's not something that I bother with. Right? If I want to go see a movie, I'm going to go see the movie. I don't give a fuck who's in it. Okay? I don't give a fuck who they casted to be a certain... Even if I think that casting decision is wrong, it's like, okay, well, maybe he wasn't good in it. Maybe that might hurt the movie. Maybe having a female version of the Silver Surfer hurts the movie. Who knows? But is that a reason why myself personally, I'm not going to go see it? No. I'm going to go see it. You know why? Because I like Marvel movies. I like superhero movies. I want to see what's going on. And, we'll see. When the trailer comes out, if it looks like a pile of shit, maybe I'll stay home. If it looks good, maybe I'll go see it. Right? But just this judging is what I'm trying to say. Like, this judging based on the gender or race of the casting decisions is... I don't know. I think that's a very shallow way to judge the validity of a project like that. And these guys that are doing it because they have ulterior motives. They're doing it because this shit makes them money. Anyway, that's enough about the fucking Silver Surfer. Hello folks, if you like what I do and you want to support the channel, please consider buying something from my Etsy shop, supporting me on Patreon, liking and subscribing, and checking me out across my social media links listed below. Thank you all so much, and see you next time.